Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast. I'm Cody Rary, joined by the tepid yet svelte Brian Hammond.
Tepid. Cool. How's it going, guys?
Good.
And
That's
girls.
a unique combination. Svelte and tepid. I don't think tepid's the word I'm looking for. Anyway. All right. I'll look it up later. I use words all the time without knowing what they mean. Because nobody calls you on it because they don't know what it means either. But I think tepid means lukewarm, which I don't think that's not what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Svelte means like... I don't know what svelte means either. All right, but I think it sounds positive.
I don't think it does. I think you insulted me twice.
Well, I meant awesome. Okay, now, speaking of svelte individuals, at least I think, because I'm not sure what it means, today's show is about Clint Eastwood, that tough old piece of leather who is an incredibly talented actor and director. Today we are focusing our discussion on his work as a director and not as an actor, because we could do a whole other show on his work as an actor, and maybe we will. Who knows? Could be worth doing. But the reason we're doing this show now is because the 86-year-old Clint Eastwood has just directed another film that comes out September 9th called Sully, about the Miracle on the Hudson, the plane crash. And before that, when he was 84, he went to like Morocco and made a war film. So, is he immortal? Yes, I think we can put it down in the books. It's just how it is. Nobody does that. Anyway, we're going to approach Clint Eastwood the same way we approach all of the directors we want to talk about. We're going to ask ourselves three questions. We're going to ask, what's one movie that sums up their whole body of work? 2, what is their best movie from an objective standpoint, or as objective as we can be? And 3, what are our personal favorite, or favorites in this case? We were not able to narrow it down.
No way.
All the way. So we're just going to jump right in with that first question, one movie that sums up the director's work. I'm going to give you my pick, and then we'll go to Brian. My pick for that is Letters from Iwo Jima, which was his 2006 companion piece to Flags of Our Fathers. Letters from Iwo Jima tells the Iwo Jima story from the Japanese side. Flags of Our Fathers tells it kind of from the American side with some aftermath. Letters from Iwo Jima, for me, represents all of his work because it is a very emotional story, plainly told. It's told very simply. It has very tragic dimensions, which he seems to be attracted to, especially in his later work. And I think it shows empathy, which is a key piece of what seems to attract him in stories, is feeling something for somebody else and what they're going through. So if you want to look for an example of those things, which to me typify what makes a film directed by Clint Eastwood, you don't have to go any farther than Letters from Iwo Jima. Brian, your pick?
I went with Unforgiven from 92. He's kind of... It's interesting because I kind of see him... I classify Eastwood in kind of two different time periods for him. And we'll get more into that in my later pick, but this is on the cusp of his very artistic side for me. It's just a great... First of all, it's just a great Western, but also the reason I think it kind of sums up his body's work, because he was a great actor, starred in a lot of Westerns, a lot of spaghetti Westerns, and so this is kind of his bridge from, starring in those spaghetti Westerns into his directing. And so it's kind of always had a soft place in my heart for that reason. But yeah, I think that's going to be the one that I picked sums up, because you've got that nice little segue from his cowboy days to his directing. So,
well, and that is a really good transition to our second question, objectively best movie, because my pick for the objective best movie is Unforgiven.
Nice.
from 92, as you said. And I want to make a case for this, because this is something that, if it's objective, you've got to present facts,
sure.
Right? It can't just be, I like it. When I first saw Unforgiven, I did not like it. I thought to myself, how am I supposed to be feeling during this? Where's the good guy? Where's the bad guy? Where's the revenge at the end that makes you feel awesome? And that's what makes it a great movie, is because all of that is stripped away. and it's just a statement on violence. That violence is terrible, whether it's justified, not justified, and the fact that you can never really know. Because at first it seems like it's setting up to be a normal revenge story Western, right? Because there's the one evil cowhand that cuts up the prostitute. Side note, the original script was named The Cut Whore Killings, which would not have the same box office appeal, I think, as Unforgiven.
It would not.
Anyway, she gets cut up, and they feel wronged by that, which they should. And then they put out a price on these two kids' heads. But then when they come back and they try to pay back for it, you feel really bad for one of them. And there's a moment later in the film, this is a spoiler, so skip ahead about 10 seconds, but it's one of the most powerful moments of the film. When Clint Eastwood's character gets hired to go kill these guys, he takes the bounty, and they shoot one of them, and he's begging for water the whole time. And they're saying, all right, we're not going to shoot, give him some water. It's just heartbreaking, and it's torturous, and you don't know how to feel, because we've been set up through years to feel like in a Western, there's going to be a wrong, and that wrong will be righted by the power of the gun and the power of, personal justice. Mm-hmm. This movie does not have that. There's everybody in them has good points and bad points. And I was thinking, just when before we talked about this, Gene Hackman, who plays the sheriff, would normally be the hero of the movie. He's just trying to keep his town peaceful. He does it in very brutal ways, which is what, colors him. But he's not, because he is such a brutal guy. And nobody, even Clint Eastwood's character, has this arc of, okay, I'm going to give up violence. And then he doesn't. He falls back into it when circumstances call for it. And it's ugly. It's not satisfying to get to see these people get shot and blown away. And that's, like I said, why I hated it. And that's why I think it's a great movie. Because it strips away all those things that Westerns are supposed to mean. And it takes them and considers them as a thoughtful adult should consider the consequences of violence. And yeah, it's right up there. I think it's fantastic. Sorry, I went on forever. But
no,
yeah,
you're good.
That's my best objective pick. What's yours, Brian?
This one I was kind of torn between because, critically, I guess I struggle with the objective part because I look at like what the critics say and I look at what Oscars it won and things like that. I went ahead and said $1 Million Baby, but I'm kind of a little trepid to say that for some reason. I don't know why. But I think that you have the emotional factor in that movie that really plays with your emotions through the whole thing. You have this whole kind of dynamic between this old, trainer who knows his craft but doesn't really want to part that much information to anyone, and he later reprises his role as the grumpy old man in Gran Torino. Sorry, that was a little joke, but anyways, I think it worked, and when I saw it in the theater, it had a very emotional impact on me, and I think artistically, the fight scenes, everything just kind of culminated, and it was a very good, artistic movie. I'm kind of going to make a case for my favorite pick is the best objectively too. So, anyways, take it for what it is. That's my pick for the objective movie, $1 Million Baby. Well,
I think you have a great argument, and I love $1 Million Baby. That was the movie that converted me to Clint Eastwood. I didn't know that he even directed movies before that came out, and then I saw it, and I thought, oh my gosh, who directed this? After it was over, I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I learned the whole history that he'd been directing for decades up to that point. I think his finest that I've seen, his finest moment as an actor is towards the end of that movie when he's speaking to the priest. And he's just kind of breaking down about everything that's going on and saying things about she's not asking for God's help, she's asking for mine. It's just so raw and so vulnerable. And that's not the quippy, dirty Harry, that's this really broken man, totally vulnerable showing up. And oh gosh, and Morgan Freeman, not to mention Hilary Swank, who's fantastic in the film. No, it won Best Picture for crying out loud, and Best Director. and Best Screenplay. There's been a lot of backlash against the screenwriter.
Well, I don't know the hate for Paul Haggis. I remember it very well because I like him.
That's right.
And for some reason, people don't like him now. I don't know why, but I like him still.
Well, and Crash, we haven't talked about Crash yet because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But a lot of it considered to be one of the worst Best Picture winners of all time by a lot of people. But you really like the film, so
I like it.
I'm excited to see it and reconsider it. And I loved $1 Million Baby, and that was written by Paul Haggis. Like I said, I think it's a great pick. I think you're fine. But that brings us to our favorites. And I was only able to eliminate this down to 7. So I'm going to do 6 honorable mentions and then 1 that's my actual choice.
Okay.
And I think the way we'll do this is I'll list my honorable mentions and then you can list yours and then we'll come back and do our absolute favorites.
Okay.
My honorable mentions are, drum roll please. Well, I guess I should mention $1 Million Baby made my list of honorable mentions. It's the movie, like I said, that converted me to Clint Eastwood. It's a fantastically made film. Also, J. Edgar made my list. It's the Leonardo DiCaprio film about J. Edgar Hoover. A lot of people said it was boring. They were wrong. It's a really interesting character portrait of a very multidimensional man. One of DiCaprio's best performances because he doesn't go for the fireworks. He goes for the quiet moments. Just a lot of questions left in the open. Was he gay? Was he not gay? Those are things that are just interesting character moments. You don't have to have answers. And I love movies that are ambiguous. It's an ambiguous movie. Also, Hereafter, another late Clint Eastwood film. 3 different stories about death. Matt Damon's fantastic in that. It's one that I can't say too much about, or I guess it ruins it, but it's different from a regular Clint Eastwood film, but it is circling around death. A Perfect World, another Kevin Costner movie, we talked about Kevin Costner a little while ago, is this wonderful 90s drama. One of Kevin Costner's best performances as an escaped convict who goes with this little Seventh-day Adventist. Is it Seventh-day Adventist or is it Jehovah's Witness? One of the two. And he kidnaps him, but then they develop this relationship along the way. Fantastic movie. Bronco Billy, which is this story of Clint Eastwood at a Wild West show, kind of a Frank Capra movie as done by Clint Eastwood. Really funny and great. And my last honorable mention is The Changeling, which is a true story starring Angelina Jolie. Sorry, yeah. And she gets her child kidnapped, and then lots of horrible things happen with the corrupt LA police. Anyway, it's a fantastic, hard movie to watch. Super hard movie to watch. There's a lot of really... it's not graphically told, but it's very realistically told, and murder of children and things like that. Just a very, very tough movie, but an incredibly well-made movie that provides a lot of empathy, and great performance by Angelina Jolie. She plays a mom. She's not really working on her looks in that movie. It's all about the performance. Yeah, it's fantastic. That's the most recent one that I've seen by him is The Changeling. So those are my honorable mentions.
All right. Mine, I went with Pell Rider from 85. I just remember the buzz about this because it was filmed in Idaho and Sun Valley area. And so I remember the buzz growing up about it. So I remember watching it on TV for the first time. It was rated R, so I didn't see it in the theater. But beautiful cinematography, and I don't remember a whole lot about the plot, but it's just, the typical Clint Eastwood Western. And I believe that, let's see, after that one, that was in 85. Changeling made my honorable mention, which we already talked about. Gran Torino did as well. I love Clint Eastwood in that role where he's just this grumpy guy who has a good heart, but it's buried beneath this crust of life. And if you can break through that, you can see the emotion and the sentimental value that he has. And that movie is just this great turning point movie for him where, he's just this racist jerk. But as the movie progresses, you see that facade just drop away, and it's a real, heartfelt, I guess movie. It's I don't want to make it sound like it's a heartfelt, like, drama that it's pretty.
It's not a family.
No, it's not a family film. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not a family film. Pervasive language and all that. But I went with Invictus as well. It was between that and Hereafter for me for an honorable mention. I really liked the story of it, and I think he did an excellent job telling that. I like the historical side of it with Mandela, and he's a really great director. American Sniper I threw in there for my last one, which just came out a couple of years ago. The story about Chris Kyle, the sniper. Very well told. I know there's a lot of controversy over this film, whether it promotes, war or doesn't, or is anti, Islamic or whatever. I think that those arguments are ridiculous, because if anything, you come away from that saying war's horrible, and also there's almost you kind of see both sides of the story unfolding, and so it almost lets you glimpse into the other side of that curtain that we don't think about that often, the enemies, quote unquote. And I think it was just a very well a very well put together film. So that's my last one.
Well, and I agree with. I limited myself eventually. I just had to, I already had too many.
What'd you say? Sorry, it cut out.
Well, I said I limited myself. I had to, but both of those movies could have made my list as well. American Sniper, especially. I really thought that was interesting that there's all this talk about, it's such a pro war.
Yeah, they did not see the movie.
It's like you didn't see the movie. Yeah. Like that's ridiculous.
It's just talking points. You didn't see the movie.
The toll it takes on his family back home, and you see the torture his wife goes through, and it's just a very responsible way to talk about war, I thought.
Yeah.
And you show that the character of Chris Kyle likes what he does. Well, he did like what he did. That's how it is. But it still took a toll on him. It took a toll on his family. And everybody who serves gets a similar toll, taken on them. So it increased my respect for those who've gone and done that. Mm-hmm. And that was stupid. Invictus, the only problem I have with Invictus is I don't understand rugby. I don't get how rugby works. So in the last huge rugby game, I was like, are they winning? Are they losing? I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. I guess it's slow motion and the ball's falling, and that's good, right? I don't know. Everything in the movie was great up until that last big game, because I literally could not follow it because I didn't know anything about rugby. So I guess it's a deficiency on my part, not the movies. But, okay, well, my personal favorite, you already spoiled it a little with your honorable mention of it, but my personal favorite Clint Eastwood film is Gran Torino. I took a lot of thought on this one, but that's the one that I go back to more than any others. And it's a deceptively well-made movie. It made a lot of money when it came out because it is so charming. It's a very charming film about a really, really vocal racist.
Yes.
But it is, and it shows that his racism, it melts away when he actually meets some of the people that he's racist against. And the Hmong people, in this case who are moving into Detroit around him. And there's going to be about a minute and a half, I think, of spoilers here, but I really have to talk about this. One of the reasons I love the film is throughout the whole film, there's this really young priest who's trying to get Clint Eastwood to talk about his wife's death. And he won't do it. Because this priest is 12 to him. He's like, what are you going to... But he has all these horrible things from the Korean War that are eating at him. And his wife knew it, and his wife told the priest that he needs to confess to you to get this off his chest, which is why the priest keeps pestering him to confess. And he won't do it. But it comes a moment when he does confess, and he confesses to the Hmong teenager that he's been working with. They're going to go and get the gang members that raped and beat up his sister so badly. And he locks him in the basement behind this screen. and then he confesses everything that happened in the Korean War to him, to this kid. And it's this really powerful scene about how you don't want to go do this with me because, again, this is a theme throughout his later movies. Violence is terrible. It leaves horrible scars. And it's just fascinating that he would pick him, that character would be, to do his confessing too. And then later in the film, by dying himself, instead of doing this big shootout, it's kind of a reverse Dirty Harry. You know, it's this violence isn't the answer, self-sacrifice is. So I think it has a very powerful ending. It's a little too clean, maybe, but it's so well done that I forgive it for the cleanness of, oh, we had witnesses, they're all going to jail, da 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 da. You know, like, so that's whatever. The point being, Clint Eastwood's fantastic in it. I keep going back to it over and over again because in some ways it is kind of Capra-esque if Capra let his character swear constantly throughout his movies. Because there is that you know, you get to know the characters so well, and there's a huge, deep, dark dive, which Frank Capra always have. In this case, takes the form of a horrible, brutal rape and assault. And then there's that dive back up where things are restored, and it works so well. And I just love it so much. I've seen it a bunch now. So yeah, that's my personal favorite.
I really like those films those kind of I don't know what else to call them besides like a redemption film where they use the actual language, the harshness of the language as a tool to make you feel redeemed in the film. Another one that comes to mind specifically is Shawshank Redemption, that actually has redemption in the title, but very heavy language at the beginning, and then towards the end there's almost none, and you almost feel that burden lifting, and it's kind of the same way with this. And I love when they do that, when there's an actual physical, emotional redemption that you experience as you're watching the film, and it's masterful. My top pick, the reason I could have went with any of these actually, Gran Torino, and by that criteria actually, Gran Torino is the one I've watched the most out of all these that we've talked about for sure. Yeah. In fact, $1 Million Baby I've only probably seen once in the theater, but I went with something a little different, something that left an impact with me when I watched it, and that's Mystic River in 2003. Now, this was my Unforgiven experience that you had. I watched it, and at the end, I was like, I saw Eastwood's credits come on. I'm like, wait, what? You know, I didn't know really that he directed, and this is early when I was starting to get into, you know, stuff that maybe makes you think more and probe more. This is a very dark, very disturbing film, actually, about a boy that was traumatized as a kid, you know, abused, kidnapped and abused for several days, and it's this big murder mystery. And I remember the music, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it piano? Eastwood composed it himself, and I remember seeing that in the credits when I first saw it, that he did the music, he directed it, and I was just floored. And really that was the first time the first film I saw of his that I was like, he's a master. He does a great job at directing, and that's kind of when he went on my radar as a director. And so that was kind of my Unforgiven moment that you had. It was with Mystic River with me. So, yeah.
I have a checkered past with Mystic River. I saw it first in college for the first time, and I was blown away by it on first viewing. I thought, oh my gosh, I was kind of wrapped up in the mystery. And then I watched it again a couple years later, and for whatever reason, didn't care for it. And I was having trouble putting my finger on what didn't work for me the second time I saw it. It seemed like the emphasis was wrong, and I don't know, I wasn't in cue with it. And then I've watched it a third time since then, and the third time was kind of a mixture of the two. I recognized that it was an incredibly well-made, well-acted piece of work, and yet I still felt distanced from it for whatever reason. I own it on Blu-ray. I look forward to watching it again. It's not one that I'm like, oh, I never watched. I look forward to watching it again to see, as I grow and change, how I keep responding to that movie. It's almost a barometer of where I'm at
It is amazing.
life.
It's so different every time you watch a film. Yeah. So that's why.
I didn't forget it. That's why it's not because I have a very complicated relationship. Just why it didn't show up on my honorable mentions. But I'd like to throw it out there that I do recognize.
Sweet.
That it's a fantastic movie. Anyway, we'll be looking forward to Sully coming out.
Yes, his 38th film that he's directed.
His 38th film that he directed, and he is now 86 years old.
Wow. You're the man.
Yes. And not afraid to say what he's thinking to anybody, which I respect.
Yep.
Because I don't have that. Anyway, we look forward to more movies from Clint Eastwood. I hope he lives to be 112 and keeps making stuff. Great body of work behind him. It's kind of funny. I have a book by the Time film critic Richard Schinkel, I think is how you say his name. It's a retrospective of all Clint Eastwood's movies. And I think he was doing it because he thought he was getting up there in age. And now there's like 3 movies that aren't in the book.
He needs a second volume, huh?
Should have waited. Yeah. Everybody keeps counting him off like, oh, well, he's 80-something. I mean, and he just keeps coming back and surprising us. So, all right. Well, that has been our retrospective of Clint Eastwood, the filmmaker. I hope you enjoyed it. Did we miss your favorite Clint Eastwood movie? I know there's a lot of older ones that I haven't seen that I need to catch up on. So recommend those to us on our Facebook or our Twitter account. We would love to hear about those. And thanks for joining us. I'm Cody Rary.
And I'm Brian Hammond.
We will talk to you next time.